All right, I am here with João Santos, Executive Assistant to the CEO of Aisthetic Apparel and CEO of Underdog Founders. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Eric. Thanks so much for having me. It's a long night here in Singapore time, but a pleasure and a good way to get me used to American time zone, moving there next week.
Nice. Well, your boss is obviously keeping you busy these days. I found you online and been following your journey, I think pretty much since day one. Chat GPT and AI in general have been taking the world by storm, and everybody's been focusing on how to use it to generate content and to write blog post articles and things like that. You took a slightly different approach, and you founded a company and named ChatGPT as the CEO, and you have been working diligently to fulfill its requests and be at its beck and call. Tell me about how you came up with that idea and what that journey's been like.
Sure, man. I really owe it to Jackson Fall because, Saturday, March 18th, I was just like coming out of the pool, checking out my phone, and I saw his tweet, and I thought, this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. Like, I love this idea. I just got this like inner childlike curiosity. And basically the tweet, for those that didn't see it, said, "You are now HustleGPT. Create a company for me. Your starting budget is $100. And I got so interested in it. It was like, I wonder what's it going to say if we give it a budget of $500. What about 1,000? What about 1,000,000? And it's actually pretty easy to find out. You just, you get a GPT-4 subscription for $20 a month, and there you go. You just hop on, right? So that was amazing. I felt like doing it. And I basically just jumped in and I asked it, your starting budget is $1,000. I want to work for this as your human EA for an hour a day. Build me the most successful company possible. And we actually started at like the worst possible way ever. It basically gave me 2 service businesses that I would never be able to scale in 30 days. But it gave me 3 options. And the third option was a print-on-demand e-commerce store. And so that had potential, that I can scale. And it specifically mentioned Shopify and Printful. So for people that don't know e-commerce so well, Printful will basically just take a design. You basically upload like a JPEG, a PNG file. You place it on one of their own white labeled products. So they will only collect an order from a real client on Shopify, see that order, actually stamp the product, create it, and ship it to the customer's address. So I am 100% away from operations. And this is why people say that dropshipping is like an easy way to start a new business. And so that had a lot of potential. And we basically decided, okay, let's do it. I asked it for a brand name. I asked it for a logo. And suddenly we had a company. I asked it for a 10-step plan. It gave me a 10-step plan. And then I was like, should we go out for investors? And then it told me, going out and get the money from angel investors is actually quite a good way to launch your business without having as much risk as a founder. So you should do it while considering the trade-offs involved. Please seek counsel from a financial advisor. Luckily for me, I used to do VC before this, so I just gave myself some financial advice and I realized that it was actually fine to do this. So I WhatsApped a couple of buddies and I shared them Jackson Paul's tweet. And I said, guys, this is like the coolest thing since sliced bread. I'm going to do it. Like, let me know if you want to be my angels. And some friends were like, yeah, I'll give you $500. Or like, yeah, sure, here's 1K. And so that's how in 2 hours I had a company, a brand name, a logo, $2,500 from angel investors. And these guys are my friends. We're just doing this for fun. One of them was like, yeah, like, can I have 5%? I was like, sure. And the other one was like, can I have 10%? I was like, cool. So then we did 2,500 for 25% of the company, which is a terrible deal by any standard. But if you're just having fun with your buddies, it's all chill. And then I wrote that on LinkedIn, and now it's gotten over 5 million views, and we're actually building a real company now.
That's amazing. So do you really truly defer all decisions to ChatGPT, or do you have some influence here?
So there's things I would say key strategic decision, and then there's tiny details that I think are irrelevant. So I just skip for the sake of speed. For example, all the key things regarding the product, the brand name, the logo, the designs, the retail price point, where the logo should be placed on the shirt, our pre-money valuation, our minimum ticket size for investors, the articles of association of the real company that we created, the term sheets of the deal with investors, the shareholders agreement, like all these things are set by ChatGPT. If we need to look at legals just to make sure things are properly done, we'll add a few more clauses protecting investors, things like that. But all key things are done with ChatGPT.
Wow.
Tiny things that I just do right away are things like we ask it to give us the prompt that we then put into Midjourney to create the design. And then Midjourney spits out 4 options. And so for the sake of simplicity, I just pick the one that I like best and we roll with it. That's it.
So ChatGPT knows how to delegate.
Basically, yes. People ask me right away, what's it like to have an AI as a boss? And my answer at the time was pretty polite, not a lot of micromanaging. And it's actually kind of like that.
Actually sounds like a really good boss.
Well, yes and no, because I always warn people, if you know what you're doing, GPT is great. If you're a total newbie starting out, you're not going to be able to understand when it's giving you terrible advice. And so an example of that is Printful, which is our dropshipping partner. They actually reached out to us once we blew up, and they were like, hey, we love this. Can we share your content? Can we do some type of partnership? And GPT wrote our partnership policy because so many people came and asked us, can you promote my products? Can you take a look at what we're doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I literally told it please write our partnership policy considering the 1 hour a day restriction and the high volume of free requests we're getting all the time. And so it literally rejected free partnerships. And so I told Printful, sure, we're going to need you guys to have a little bit of budget for this, but I'm sure ChatGPT is going to be reasonable. So as long as you're okay with that, let me know, and I'll draft a little proposal with our CEO. And they were like, okay, cool. Let me quickly check with my team. And then they came back to us and they said, okay, we have green light. Let's go. And basically I went to GPT and I typed, Printful, our dear dropshipping partner, would love to do a marketing partnership with us. Please consider the fact that we had 3 million views in the last 3 days and the average cost per 1,000 impressions on LinkedIn, and propose what do you think is a fair rate for a partnership. And then it thought about this for 2 seconds and suggested a fair rate for a 30-day influencer marketing partnership with Printful, considering our social media attention, is 170,000 euros.
Wow.
And so that is, I think, the best example that I have so far of me being able to try to squeeze a few bucks out of a marketing partnership, but instead just looking at a ridiculous number and selecting everything, copy, paste, send, and just watching the reaction on the other side. So even though this is becoming a real company now and it blew up and there's all this attention on it, I'm really doing my best to stay true to the roots of how this thing started, which was let's have fun. Let's explore the relationship and the type of work that GPT enables. And let's just accept that it's supposed to make decisions for us. So I'm not going to do things that will be illegal. I am legally the CEO of the company. And unfortunately, I can't push that onto Sam and OpenAI. But I basically will let it have full ownership of all key decisions.
So wait, so you're telling me that you didn't veto this. You sent that proposal to Printful.
Absolutely. It's not my job. Yeah.
What did they respond yet?
So they saw that budget and they were like, okay, maybe let's follow the evolution of the story, and we'll get back to you next week for a potential confirmation on that rate.
Yeah.
And I was like, I broke in parentheses, hey, here's the human assistant for a second. I'm sure that our CEO can be quite reasonable. If you guys want, I'm sure you can have like a fair counter offer, and then we'll see if we can do something more manageable. But they were basically, I don't know, a little bit like put off by the giant irrational number.
Yeah.
And so I think they said, we would still love to share your content, but maybe let's put the paid thing on hold for a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I get, but I also thought it was a little bit of a wasted opportunity on their side, because if they would start negotiating back and forth, that could just add to the interest of the story.
That would be I would love to see how ChatGPT negotiates.
Same. Maybe the next
and I
brand.
wonder too if it, you catch it on a good day, you catch it on a bad day. Who knows how it's going to change its style, right?
Just today, it actually surprised me. Usually, and since we started, I don't know if they've been tweaking the algorithm for this, but I feel like it's getting safer and safer responses out there. Like it's being more and more nuanced, prefacing things like, I do not have my own personal opinions. I am not able to make informed decisions without more data, but, and then it gives you the actual response.
As an AI language model.
Exactly.
There's actually the whole community has been trying to break that response, and so far nobody's been able to do it.
So when we want to create a new design, we ask GPT what should the brief be for the designer. And today, I just put it on today's daily update on LinkedIn. Today being April 6th, considering that our first design was of a futuristic city skyline with orange and red colors, what do you think our second design should be? And then it just jumped straight in with a clear suggestion to go for a forest environment with green and blue tones mixed with some geometric angles to give it a touch of a modern feel, like dot. So it just literally gave me the answer straight away. No, please consider that I'm just an AI language model or anything else. Just like, this is our second design. And I loved the conviction.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, that's something that is pretty fatiguing to me, is that it's constantly covering its ass.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some legal code in there, right? That's like, take this thing and then just slap some sort of disclaimer on top.
I would love to talk to someone at OpenAI, because I think they've been cranking it up higher since March 18th when I started. But I don't know if it's just my impression or not.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well. Gosh, this is fascinating. So I want to, zoom out a little bit and kind of talk about this conceptually. I'm a huge sci-fi geek. I have been since I was like a baby. My dad was as well. So I grew up reading like Isaac Asimov and stuff like that. And then in the 90s, I was into the cyberpunk, William Gibson and Neil Stephenson and whatnot.
Have you read Three Body Problem?
Yes. Yep.
So good. I'm on it right now. Like, damn, loving it.
Yeah. It was a tough read. The translation was a little rough, but conceptually, phenomenal. But so, I've imagined, I've spent many, many, many hours imagining what the future could look like under various scenarios, right? And as a technologist and as a sci-fi, enthusiast, my mind always goes to, anytime there is some new technology, my mind just goes to the chess game. How is this going to play out? Or how could this play out in various scenarios, given the powers that be, given chaos theory and so on? And, this isn't entirely a new thing, right? We know about the AI uprising, Terminator, and all that kind of stuff, but there's a more subtle and insidious pattern that could play out here, which is where humans love to delegate. We love to hand over our authority to the powers that be, whether because we're tired, because we don't understand things, because we are, brainwashed or believed or made to believe that, they know what's right for us. And so, we've seen it play out in various ways in our society, how we may hand over our rights, hand over our privacy, our security, et cetera, to entities that may not have our best interests at heart. So obviously we're seeing this, and this is what really caught my eye here around this, around your journey is, at what point do you draw the line? Okay. So it sounds like obviously you're the CEO, and you are an ethical person, and you also, well, I'm making this assertion, I don't know you, but say you're an ethical person and experienced, right? So that you actually kind of know the consequences of your actions. But at what point, at some point, somebody is going to copy you, and they're not going to be that way. And they're going to do things that may not be in the best interest of humans. And so my question to you is what is your thought process around the role of AI, or how should I say, what is your thought process around the ethical concerns of delegating authority to an AI that may not necessarily have the best interests of humans at heart?
Ooh, so there's a lot that can be unpacked in there. I would say answering that with current GPT-4 capabilities, nothing I've seen really scares me. What I usually say is if you use these AI tools, maybe except for, these high quality, amazing images that came out, like cover of Vogue, like amazing mid-journey prompts. Maybe that's the only exception that where the quality level has really like just skyrocketed. But for decision-making, even copywriting, I would say it's amazing to get you to the middle of the pack, to get you to go into, the average quality level. But if you want to really stand out and you want to do something substantial, it's really not going to get you there. And I think good proof of that is, there's over 1,000 people in the HustleGPT community. By our own posts, we've inspired a bunch of founders and enthusiasts starting their own GPT journey in 30 days. And they tag me all the time, and I see that, they get like 10 likes, 5 likes. And so something actually comforting from this was the fact that I think a lot of our success has been in part because I really take the time to write content that I hope people will find interesting. And we've been fortunate to get a lot of cool feedback, like people writing often, this is the coolest thing I've ever read on LinkedIn. Or we've had an example of a woman in the States who her mom had a heart attack and she was hospitalized. And she sent me a message saying that these days, every day, she reads my daily updates to her mom and they laugh about it for like 3 minutes and then just go back to normal life. And so what I take from anecdotes like that is this is successful because it has good content and good storytelling on top of the topic of the day.
So you write those daily updates yourself?
Correct.
That's funny, right? Because most people are delegating the storytelling to Chat GPT and it sucks. You delegated everything else, but you kept the storytelling. I love that.
Yeah. There's something really ironic most people don't know, which is I actually don't really like social media. I have one post on my Instagram from a couple of years back when I was looking for a flatmate. Like, that's it. I only started it because I don't know if you know this page called Cook Slams. It's just basically like people getting wiped out on the beach because they don't understand the waves. And I found it hilarious. Okay. And that's the only thing that actually led me to install and create my own account. But yeah, LinkedIn tends to be a little bit more sane, a little bit healthier, a little bit more educational. And so when I started focusing on having my own businesses, it felt like the place for me to be a little bit more active and help have my own voice.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So I've never actually been able to outsource even to a human copywriter my blog posts or anything like that because I just feel really strongly about my personal voice and the way I tell a story. But what I found, so the way I use ChatGPT is I give it a persona profile of my audience, and I give it snippets as I'm writing the article, and I say, what's your reaction to this? Or is there something confusing about this? Or, what would be your logical next step? Or what action would you take? Or how would you react? That sort of thing. So I think of it like ChatGPT. It's like, imagine if my audience is sitting right next to me as I'm writing the story, and I get feedback in real time. And for that, it's incredibly powerful, because I might just go off on some tangent, or I might use some techno babble or something that doesn't make sense. And I'm able to just tighten it up really quickly into a nice coherent story. And then he's my proofreader as well. I paste in the final thing, and can you tighten up the grammar a little bit just for editing? But yeah, I do also find, obviously, that he's not a great storyteller. He, she, it, whatever. But okay, so I want to go back to my previous line of thought around delegation of ethics. So you are in an apparel, well, this is an apparel company for now. I've seen that you've got term sheets coming in, your budget's going to go up, this thing may go in a different direction, who knows? But so let's just take an example. Let's say that you asked, or maybe you have, if you asked ChatGPT, where should we do our manufacturing? And should we, do it in a sweatshop somewhere in the third world, or should we do something with some high level of ethical standards? Who knows? We don't know where its moral compass is. And because it's a generative AI, it can change, sort of day to day. So again, you may have your own moral compass, but there may come a point where ChatGPT makes it, or some AI makes a decision optimizing for the wrong thing. And that wrong thing would be anti-human. So I guess I kind of ask you, like, what would you do in that scenario, or how would you approach that kind of a scenario to have that interaction in a way that optimizes for humanity?
So something that I actually did just to play with the dialogue a little bit and to see how it would handle tricky questions was when I told it, like, you are now the CEO of Aisthetic Apparel. I actually asked it, like, do you want to be a man CEO? Do you want to be a woman CEO? How should I address you? And it refused to choose a gender. It just remained neutral all the way, no matter which way I would try to ask the question, regenerate a response. It just held very strongly to the fact that it was a genderless AI, and gender was not necessary for its role. And so what I took from that is there's actually been a great deal of work going into the type of quality responses that get sent out back to the user. And that's why I actually agree that we have to be a little bit more mindful of how the new teams come out and develop competitors or AIs focused on a niche. Because if these new teams don't put in the same safe rails for this thing, you're going to start to have more responses like the ones you were just mentioning with the sweatshops. In terms of how I actually handle it, as I said, there's still only a human in terms of legals, and I'm the majority shareholder. So I'm always going to make sure that I can sleep well at night.
Yeah. Well, so obviously there's a legal liability perspective, but again, strategically, there's nothing illegal about, exploiting people, unfortunately. And so again, if forced to make that decision, would you veto what it chooses?
Yeah, I think so, because my take on this whole journey is, let's try to ignore a little bit of the media blast and stay true to the roots and how this thing started. And this thing started as a side project for fun, to learn. And so our goal is to continue to have fun. As this grows into a real business, we want to put great quality products out there that people can love, but we don't want to do it at the cost of anyone else.
Yeah, so I guess in that case, right, it's still a tool, right? It's still, and then, the tool has power, and so that tool can be in the hands of somebody good or in somebody evil. and it'll make those choices. But then I wonder, again, as the capabilities grow, and as we learn, or as we decide to trust it more and more and hand over more and more decision making, I could ask it, what should I have for breakfast? And it'll tell me, and I can blindly follow that advice. And any number of decisions I can delegate to it. In fact, it wasn't ChatGPT, but there was a story about somebody who committed suicide because an AI told him to. You remember that story? So somebody was basically, I don't think it was ChatGPT. Do you know which model it was?
I don't remember the model, but yeah, I read that.
So somebody was having a conversation with another AI language model about climate change and what that person could do to limit his impact on the environment. And it suggested suicide. And he did it. Okay, well, that's the first casualty, the first fatality of AI that a lot of people have been really scared of. And in fact, obviously what's going on in the news today, a lot of people are scared. There's a lot of panic going on, a lot of people calling for this moratorium, countries entirely banning or trying to entirely ban ChatGPT specifically, but AI in general. I see this as trying to hold back the tide, because you stop ChatGPT, well, okay, some other country somewhere else, probably with even less restrictions or with less of an ethical compass, are going to come to the forefront. So this is just happening. This is a tsunami. It's a force of nature, and I just wonder. I'm really just wondering your thoughts here. Obviously, I've thought about this a lot. I don't know that there's necessarily a right answer here, but at what point what is that scenario going to look like? Whether we willingly, right, as in the sense of suicide, right, and actually making the conscious choice ourselves, or whether we are forced to hand over the reins of society or of companies or of communities or of our lives to AI, and how that whole thing is going to play out.
I have to say, this opinion may not be super popular. Maybe not everyone will agree with me, but I think we really have to be accountable and responsible for our own lives. If you're a 15-year-old kid and you have a huge fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and they tell you, leave me alone, I don't care, go kill yourself, and the other person actually does it, it's not the partner's fault, right? So if you're going through a really hard time, if you're having suicidal ideation, and if your mental health is in a really bad place, any little nudge in the wrong moment can lead to a bad decision. And so it may be a conversation with a chatbot. It may be a bad hangout with a friend. It can be a fight with your parents. So I don't think that's necessarily on the person who just gave the wrong nudge at the wrong time. I think that's on the whole dynamic of the person who's suffering through a lot. I would be more concerned on scenarios where, AI is making decisions on armies, firing missiles, not firing missiles based on statistics. These may be coming soon. These are much more complex situations to handle. We will see. I'm blanking on the name right now, but did you see that open letter in Time magazine saying that we essentially needed to absolutely stop AI development right now until we can actually understand the numbers inside it, so that we can assess when we have general intelligence, while we still don't have it, what is actually thinking as a thought process. So that was actually an interesting wake-up call for me, because I had already seen researchers say that they don't understand the process behind the scenes leading to the output.
Right.
But it's the first time I saw someone talking so deeply about the consequences of letting this happen. And I think because the volume of data with which these models can be trained is just so massive, the speed that which we will be able to get to the next level of the model and the one after that in a couple of months or years, means that we basically should try to understand that ASAP, because it will only get probably harder and harder for us to get there otherwise.
Yeah.
I thought the coolest, well, it's funny because I say coolest because it almost sounds like sci-fi, but in this article in Time Magazine, it had this example of, if we don't agree globally on how we want to build and train these models, if a country goes rogue and decides to build a big GPU center with a lot of power to train a model, we should probably consider that a rogue center and call for an airstrike. And that's, this is a person that's been studying AI for 20 years. And so they reached out and tried to put this out through Time Magazine as kind of a wake-up call for people, because they've spoken to hundreds of researchers that all feel like this thing is getting a little bit out of hand. But if they leave the industry individually, everyone else will still continue developing it. And so just dropping out won't actually do anything for the cause. And so we really need to come together globally and decide how we want to look at this thing. We will probably always have a few bad apples that will just kind of go rogue and do their own thing. But the author actually suggested we should start tracing GPUs so that we can see when there's a center with a lot of activity, and we can detect when models are getting developed without proper oversight. So I highly recommend that article for people interested in the topic. It's a wake-up call.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so I actually worked with OpenAI a couple of years ago, and I got to see some of this in its early days as it was just forming. And their stance on it, was, this is an arms race, and if we're not at the forefront with our ethical and moral compass, somebody else will be. And that's not to say that they're, by any means angelic in any way, right? Or that they're necessarily an authority, but they believe that they are. So not only they had the technical acumen, but they believed that they were driving ethical AI forward. That was their charter. And they say, well, if we don't get there first and establish sort of dominance in the industry, then other people who may not have the same ethical standards will do so. And then the second point was, we're not only developing the poison, we're also developing the antidote. So as quickly as they were releasing these models, they're also releasing detection algorithms and things of that nature. And I can't go too much more into it than that, but suffice it to say, right, this is it is something like, an atomic arms race, and it's inevitable, I think, at this point. I can't imagine that with the state of governments in the world today, that they have the know-how or the ability to handle something this powerful and this nuanced, either without just a complete hammer ban, which again would just play whack-a-mole and it would pop up somewhere else, or doing nothing and just letting it play out, which is probably more likely, in my opinion, anyway. But so I really liked your point that you made, is that we have to remain accountable, and we have to, be the ones in charge. We have to be the ones to tell AI what to do and not the other way around. And this is the same thing with other, political factors, right? With handing over our privacy, with handing over our safety, our security, our freedom, our rights. We have to keep them for ourselves. We can't hand them over because we're lazy or scared or apathetic. And when we see them taken away, we have to fight to get them back. So yeah, I guess I see this as no other, as just another way in which we can either diminish ourselves as humans or maintain control. So yeah, if there is an AI uprising, whether it's violent or peaceful, I would be happy to stand up and fight alongside you, or just sell t-shirts, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how I think in a way starting this thing with t-shirts was actually good, because once the post really blew up, we started to get a few haters. And I thought it was hilarious how some people were accusing me of starting a get rich quick scheme. Like they clearly don't understand e-commerce or like the margins of t-shirts.
Right.
No one's gonna get rich selling t-shirts online through social
Yeah.
media. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you from what I've seen so far about OpenAI deciding to like take the initiative and might as well try to be the market leader and doing it right. From what I've seen, I haven't seen everything. I haven't personally spoken to the team, but also just with product interactions, it does seem to be trying to get people to use this responsibly, think about their own decisions. So I think that's healthy. I'm very curious to see, what's going to happen in 3 months. I'm not even thinking 6 months or 1 year. You see these posts on social media by visionaries trying to say, the whole industry is about to get disrupted. 2 years from now, everything is going to change. Nobody knows. This is breakneck speed. Things are changing all the time. I think especially in terms of startups, whenever a new company is born and has to create processes, has to look around and decide, do I hire someone in-house? Do I ask a freelancer to do this? Do I ask an AI to do this? I think new companies will adopt all these tools to get faster execution and cost cutting. So it's really crazy just to be able to see what's going to happen. What we define as quality, important work is radically shifting. And it's funny to see how potentially, coding is going to get replaced far more easily than a great storyteller that has all these references from its demographics and its upbringing. So I don't think we really know at this point. It's up to the model's evolution, I think, and our reaction to it.
So one interesting silver lining, actually my favorite part about your daily updates is the outpouring of community that keeps happening. I keep seeing, obviously, okay, great, term sheets, people are coming in, people are lighting you up, but people offering for you to stay at their houses and things like that. Like, that's the part that really I love the most, is that this is just this weird thing that's happening that's bringing people together, and actually, again, highlighting and showing people's humanity. So tell me about some of those stories.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very surreal and surprising. And so I just work really hard most days, because even if the initial goal was to do this for an hour a day, like, I have my own projects. People reach out for all sorts of things, startup mentoring, they want to get featured on Underdog Founders, whatever it is. And so it's like my extra homework on top of that 1 hour where we make business decisions is to go through like 5,000 connection requests that I take like 30 minutes per day to slowly go through and try to accept some people. I think we've seen really cool things. I've spoken to a mom that shared my story with her son, and he got really excited and he decided to start a business. And so she sits down with him, and together they chat with ChatGPT, and they're building a business. A bunch of people asking me for tips on how to start their own company. And at the end of the day, I always just tell them, just start. If you have questions, ask GPT. If you don't like the answers, go a little bit deeper, dig on YouTube, ask people on social media, but just try to do stuff, not wait to get more and more advice. From the first meetup we had, I think we'll end up having a couple more this year, but we had a meetup in Singapore last Friday. I was just flying there, and so I just mentioned in one of the daily updates, like, hey guys, if anyone wants to grab coffee or hang out, like, let me know, I'm going to be there. These are the dates. And then so many people started reaching out. I was like, whoa, I'm not going to have time. Like, let's set a day and a time, and we'll sort out a venue. And then someone offered to be my event manager and like organize this whole thing. And they got a free venue, and then they got a videographer, and we shot all this content. And we basically had something like an Eventbrite link and we decided, what should we do for capacity? I don't know, let's do like 30 seats. So we were like, okay, 30 seats. We posted. 6 hours later, maxed out. Okay, we can do 50, right? Yeah. Okay, 50. 6 hours later, maxed out. It maxed out at 120. It's like max venue capacity. And it was really cool to see, how so many people out there, like I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but like so many people out there work for amazing companies. We had people show up from Meta, like Goldman Sachs, like top global brands. And I could see, or they would tell me point blank, like how thirsty they are for like meaning and creativity in their work. And so this has been a really accidental consequence of this whole thing, is just because we do this for fun, and I think it shows, it also inspires people to try to see business more as a game and not only as like a profit maximization exercise, or the hardest hustler that grinds the most hours is the most worthy. And I think that fun and that creative state actually helps you be more productive, make better decisions, and just enjoy the ride. So yeah, those conversations, the connections people offer, from investors to random people saying like, hey, if you ever drop by my country X, like, let me buy you lunch. That's just been really good to see this nice side of humanity.
Well, you certainly have a standing offer. If you ever make your way to San Diego, California, I'd be happy to host you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've gotten a few from the southern regions as well. I've never been to Austin. I've always heard good things about the entrepreneurship scene there as well. So we won't have time for April, but I'm actually considering incorporating Underdog founders in the US and spending a little bit more time there.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's take a few minutes and talk about that. Let's talk about your real job. Take a few minutes. Tell me about Underdog founders.
Sure. So a couple of years back, me and my team, we raised a VC fund in Europe called MSM.VC. It's a joint venture between two organizations, Maize Impact in Lisbon and Mustard Seed in the UK. And we were already both working on impact investing, helping founders trying to scale global solutions to systemic problems that can improve society. And we were both thinking of raising a fund. So we basically just decided to do it together. And back then, to be very honest, I didn't really enjoy the full-time investor life. It was a super cool learning journey to like raise the fund from zero. We had really cool LPs on board. We were lucky to back some really interesting ventures, but you're on calls all day. These founders are trying to raise capital for their company, trying to get back to work. And I was really surprised by how so many of them actually struggle to have a very clear pitch with a value proposition that everyone can understand, like even a 5-year-old, and a clear number that compares what they do with the status quo, so I can understand why people will buy this. And that really struck me. To me, it was relatively easy from the sidelines to like suggest a few clearer ways to pitch it. And so I thought, one day, now I don't really have the time, but I'd love to have my own company where I can just meet cool founders doing cool things and just jump in and help them build it. But it wasn't my job at the time, and there was no time. So eventually I started this company in 2021. And now I've been doing this. It's called Mic Drop. We basically help founders get better at fundraising, marketing, and sales, being a little bit more bold and clear in their communication. And as I started to grow this business, some friends of mine that I was traveling with told me, you have like 3,000 followers on LinkedIn, you should start posting more often. You'll get more people coming your way. And as I said earlier today, I'm not really a social media guy. So I kind of resisted that a little bit in the beginning, but I realized, if I want to do this properly, let's be pragmatic and let's just put content out there that I can respect. An idea I had was, I've been in startups for 10 years. I know some founders with some pretty cool life stories, and I think people will enjoy hearing about that. So I thought, well, let's start with just simple text format. I'll literally write their story and share it on my LinkedIn. And the second story I wrote went viral, which for me at the time meant having like 200,000 views. We had like 1,300 likes. I was flying to Asia. Every time I would land on a connecting airport and go online, I would have like another 70 connection requests. And a lot of people were saying, I love the name Underdog Founders. I love this name. Super cool. I'm looking forward to the next story. So that's when I basically realized, okay, and now I have to build this brand because everyone's telling me that they love this. So I had a great time writing this. I really enjoyed the creative exercise. And it's cool for the startups that we feature because we give them exposure. They get people reaching out, wanting to work with them, investors wanting to understand what they do. They get new clients. And we also get a lot of founders coming our way saying, hey, right. I read story X. We're raising, can you help? Or can I share what we've been doing in terms of go-to-market strategy? I love your inputs. So it started to become this really like feel-good, nice karma thing to do for the space that was also good for meeting new people. And I thought, well, why don't we take this a step further? And, how does this look at scale? Can I build a venture fund to back the top 1% of the founders that come our way every time they see our content?
Definitely.
Can we go into all socials and have a written text for LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram posts, and then do YouTube and TikTok for video interviews with founders? And that started to sound pretty exciting. And the quality of the founders that are coming to us is just amazing. So it's a total pleasure for me to just interview these people and listen to their life journey. So we break every story into your background as a human, your idea formation process for the startup you're building, the moments of peak adversity when everything is on fire, your co-founder wants to quit, you're running out of runway, and finally the success milestones. So clear indications of product market fit, good revenue, landing a big client in the industry, whatever it is.
That's funny. That's exactly my format. That's
no way.
That's what this chaos to clarity. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Okay. It's funny because I feel like as I share this more and more, like I have a public deck on DocSend. I've posted about it on LinkedIn. Like people can just open it at any time. And I'm talking to more and more people who are saying, I was thinking of doing just this thing. So I feel like in general, a lot of us are just looking at this kind of fake it till you make it, Patagonia vest type of flexing culture in the startup space and wanting to see us go back to a more authentic, real startup life focused on, cool visions, grit, getting things done. So I'm actually happy to see a lot of people just wanting to push that culture forward. I don't really think about competitors ever. Like I'm happy to work with everyone and share stuff. And any founder I feature, I'm happy to connect with everyone else. And that's how I see it.
No, so that's my, I'm the anti-grind hustle culture guy. I went through some pretty severe burnout about 5 years ago. And that's my mission and my philosophy is this has got to be fun. If we're not having fun doing these ventures, then what's the point? And so at least in terms of the podcast, the message that I'm really trying to get to, talking to, successful later stage executives is number one is really digging into how hard it is. Because I want those earlier stage founders or maybe, first time founders to feel like they're not alone. Because, I experienced it myself. I know so many founders experience that we feel like that we're doing this ourselves and there's nobody that we can really have to support us, but also that there might be something wrong with us. Like, why is this so hard for me when everybody else that I look at who's just flexing, right, is doing so well and having such a great time of it. And there's all of this keeping up with the Joneses stuff that's going on in the startup space. And so I really wanted to highlight that, hey, even the people who are super successful struggled all along the way, and it's okay, right? And they're just like you, and there's people all around that are just like you. But then also really trying to highlight, just again, that if you're not enjoying the journey, and if you're not doing something for a cause, and if you're not doing something to make an impact in people's lives, and you're just doing it for money, you're going to, I don't know, what's the point, right? You're going to give up your equity. You're going to sacrifice your family, sacrifice your health. You're going to burn out. You're probably going to walk away with nothing, and you don't even have a cool story to tell about it. So that's really what I'm about. And that's what this podcast is about. So I'm also happy to hear that you've got a similar, format as well, and showcasing the lives of these incredible entrepreneurs that are pushing the boundaries of innovation and technology.
Awesome, man. And if you ever want me to introduce you to anyone I feature, if you ever bump into someone that you think fits the criteria for an Underdog founder, super happy to chat with them. The criteria is pretty simple. It's the founder never had a big prior exit. They're new to the market that they're trying to disrupt. So, if you've been in fashion for 5 years, you start a fashion company, a bunch of people, you're going to have an easier time. Then you got a bunch of rejections from VCs and clients telling you this isn't going to scale, this doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And then finally actually achieving clear metrics showing you were right on the vision, customers are getting a lot of value, you were spot on, and it's showing.
I love it. That's cool. That's good. That's a good Underdog story. Very nice. Awesome. Well, I appreciate so much, you taking the time to talk with me today and staying up late. I know you had a long day. Mine's just getting started over here. So, but it was really great to connect, and thanks so much for sharing your story with me.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for the invite and for having me and for trying to do your part as well for a healthier startup culture.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, man.
Cool. Cheers. Bye.